Look at your life for a moment. How many times have you sacrificed your own peace just to keep someone else comfortable? How many times have you stayed silent, said yes, forgiven too quickly, and watched people respect you even less? Somewhere along the way, you were taught that being good would protect you. But what if that's the biggest lie you've ever believed? Today, you'll discover why kindness without boundaries doesn't create respect. It creates opportunity for others to use you. And once you understand this, you'll never see human nature the same way again. Stop for a moment. Before you listen to another word, ask yourself one uncomfortable question. How much of your life have you spent trying to deserve love? Not earn success, not build confidence, not pursue your purpose, but simply deserve to be accepted. Maybe you've spent years believing that if you were patient enough, generous enough, forgiving enough, and understanding enough, people would naturally appreciate you. You believed kindness would become your protection. You believed sacrifice would eventually be rewarded. You believed the world recognized those who always chose peace over conflict. Yet somehow, the more you gave, the less people seemed to value what you offered. The more available you became, the less important your presence felt. The more you forgave, the more others assumed they could cross your boundaries without consequence. Slowly, almost invisibly, your greatest virtue became your greatest vulnerability. This is one of the oldest illusions human beings ever created. The belief that goodness alone commands respect. It doesn't. Respect has never belonged exclusively to the kind. It belongs to those who understand value, and value has rules. Rules that most people never learn because they spend their entire lives confusing kindness with self-sacrifice. Think back to childhood. Most of us were praised for being agreeable. Share your toys, don't argue, don't make people uncomfortable, always apologize, always help, always smile, always forgive. These lessons sound beautiful. Some of them are. But hidden beneath these teachings is an invisible message that quietly shapes adulthood. Never become difficult. Never disappoint anyone. Never say no. Never prioritize yourself. Over time, many people stop asking a dangerous question. What do I actually want? Instead, they become experts at asking another question. What do other people expect from me? That question slowly becomes the center of their identity. Without realizing it, they stop making decisions based on purpose. They begin making decisions based on approval. And approval is one of the most addictive substances on earth. Unlike money, unlike fame, unlike achievement, approval feels immediate. Someone smiles. Someone thanks you. Someone tells you how amazing you are. For a brief moment, your nervous system relaxes. You feel safe, valuable, needed, important. But here's the hidden danger. If your value depends on being needed, then you become afraid of ever saying no. Because what if they stop needing you? What if they leave? What if they become disappointed? What if they think you're selfish? Little by little, your personality begins to revolve around avoiding rejection instead of pursuing truth. That is where freedom quietly disappears. Many people don't become prisoners because someone locks them inside a cage. They become prisoners because they build one themselves. A cage made from expectations. Every favor, every unnecessary apology, every uncomfortable yes, every time you ignore your own exhaustion just to keep someone else comfortable, another bar is added. Eventually, the cage feels normal. You stop questioning it. You call it kindness, you call it maturity, you call it compassion, but often it is fear wearing a beautiful disguise. Fear rarely announces itself. It doesn't always sound like panic. Sometimes fear sounds incredibly noble. I don't want to hurt anyone. I'll deal with it. It's easier if I just help. They've had a hard day. It's not worth arguing. I can handle it. Listen carefully. None of those sentences are automatically wrong. The problem begins when they become automatic. When your first instinct is always to protect everyone else's emotions before considering your own. That isn't balance, it's self-erasure. Imagine carrying a backpack. Every time someone asks for your time, you put another stone inside. Every time you ignore your own needs, another stone. Every time you avoid conflict, another stone. Every time you sacrifice your peace for acceptance, another stone. At first, you barely notice the weight. Years later, you wonder why you're exhausted. Not physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. You wake up tired, not because life is impossible, but because you've been carrying responsibilities that were never yours. The strange part is this. Many people secretly believe this exhaustion makes them admirable. They wear burnout like a medal. I'm always helping. I'm always there. I never think about myself. People applaud them for a while. But admiration without respect eventually turns into expectation. Once people become accustomed to unlimited access to your energy, they stop appreciating it. What was once generosity becomes obligation. What was once kindness becomes routine. They no longer say thank you because they assume you'll always be there. This isn't because people are necessarily cruel. It's because human beings adapt astonishingly fast. Anything consistently available becomes invisible. Think about oxygen. Nothing is more valuable. Yet almost nobody spends the day appreciating every breath. Why? Because it's always there. The same principle quietly governs relationships. Constant availability reduces perceived value. Scarcity creates awareness. This is not manipulation, it is psychology. The mind notices what it risks losing. It rarely notices what seems guaranteed. That's why many people experience a painful paradox. The moment they finally begin protecting their time, people accuse them of changing. When they stop answering every message immediately, someone feels offended. When they refuse another favor, someone calls them selfish. When they establish healthy boundaries, others suddenly describe them as cold. Notice something fascinating. Those accusations rarely appear when you're destroying yourself to keep everyone happy. They appear the moment you stop doing it. Why? Because boundaries expose unhealthy expectations. The people who genuinely care about you may need time to adjust. The people who only benefited from your endless availability often become angry. Not because you've become worse, because you've become unavailable for exploitation. This realization changes everything. It forces you to ask one of the hardest questions of adulthood. Was I loved? Or was I simply useful? Those are not always the same thing. Being useful can attract people. Being respected keeps the right ones. For years, you may have believed your role was to fix everyone, solve every crisis, calm every argument, carry every burden, absorb every emotional storm. But somewhere along the journey, you forgot one essential truth. You were never placed on this earth to become everyone's emotional shelter while abandoning your own life. Kindness should be a gift, not an identity, because identities become prisons. If your identity depends on always being the good person, then every disagreement feels like failure, every boundary feels selfish, every confrontation feels immoral, every act of self-protection feels wrong. And that is exactly how people lose themselves. Not overnight, but decision by decision, conversation by conversation, year after year. The greatest danger isn't becoming disliked. The greatest danger is becoming someone who no longer knows where they end and everyone else begins. Real strength doesn't ask, "How much can I sacrifice?" It asks, "What must I protect so I can continue becoming who I was meant to be?" There is a profound difference. One life is built around pleasing others. The other is built around honoring your purpose. One slowly empties you. The other quietly strengthens you. Today isn't about abandoning kindness. Far from it. It's about separating kindness from weakness, because they have never been the same thing. A genuinely kind person chooses generosity. A fearful person feels unable to choose anything else. Freedom begins the moment choice returns. That moment may begin today. There is a strange law that governs almost every human relationship. Most people never notice it, yet it silently determines who gets respected, who gets ignored, and who gets used. It has nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with beauty, nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with perceived value. Human beings rarely treat people according to who they truly are. They treat them according to what they believe they can get away with. Read that again. People don't simply respond to your personality. They respond to the boundaries your behavior creates. Every interaction sends a signal. Every decision teaches people how to treat you. Every yes writes another line in the invisible manual that others use to define your worth. This manual is never spoken. It is never written. Yet everyone reads it. Imagine meeting someone for the first time. You ask them for a small favor. They immediately agree. Then another favor. Again, they agree. Soon, you realize something. There is almost no resistance, no conditions, no hesitation. Your brain begins making unconscious calculations. This person is always available. This person doesn't protect their time. This person will probably say yes again. And me? You stop asking whether you should. You simply expect it. This is how respect quietly disappears, not because people wake up wanting to exploit others, but because the human mind naturally adjusts to whatever becomes normal. Availability creates familiarity. Unchecked familiarity often destroys appreciation. Think about luxury, a rare watch, an exclusive restaurant, a limited edition car. Why do people value these things so highly? Not only because of quality, because of scarcity. The harder something is to access, the more valuable it becomes. Now ask yourself a difficult question. How scarce is your attention? How scarce is your energy? How scarce is your availability? If everyone has unlimited access to you, why would anyone treasure your presence? The uncomfortable truth is that many people unintentionally make themselves emotionally inexpensive. They answer every message immediately, cancel important plans to solve someone else's problems, drop everything whenever they're called, always make themselves accessible. At first, this looks generous. Eventually, it becomes expected. Expectation slowly replaces gratitude, and once gratitude disappears, respect often follows. There is another psychological principle few people understand. The brain does not only measure what you give, it also measures what giving costs you. Imagine two friends. One lends you $50 without thinking. The other rearranges their entire schedule to help you move across town. Which sacrifice feels greater? Usually the second. Why? Because effort communicates value. The same rule applies to your own life. If your attention appears effortless, people assume it has little value. But if your time is clearly protected, people instinctively recognize that receiving it is a privilege. Notice the people you admire. leaders, experts, successful entrepreneurs, mentors, artists. Do they apologize for having boundaries? Rarely. They schedule their time, protect their focus, decline unnecessary invitations, say no without writing a 3-page explanation. And, strangely, people admire them more because of it. Why? Because boundaries communicate self-respect, and self-respect is contagious. People tend to mirror the value you place on yourself. If you constantly communicate that your own priorities can wait, others learn to believe the same thing. If you constantly interrupt your own life for everyone else's emergencies, others assume your life isn't very important. This is not cruelty. It is human pattern recognition. The brain looks for consistency. Your actions become evidence. Words become irrelevant. You can say, "My time matters," but if every action says otherwise, people believe the actions, always. This explains why some individuals seem magnetic without trying. They are not chasing attention. They are protecting their energy. There is a calm confidence that comes from someone who knows exactly what deserves access to their life. That confidence cannot be faked because it comes from internal permission, not external approval. Now, let's explore one of the biggest misunderstandings about kindness. Many people believe saying no damages relationships. In reality, weak boundaries damage relationships far more. Why? Because resentment grows wherever honesty disappears. Imagine agreeing to something you don't actually want to do. You smile, you say yes. Inside, you feel frustration. You tell yourself it's fine. Hours later, you're exhausted. Days later, you secretly resent the very person you helped. But whose fault was that? Not theirs. They accepted an offer you freely gave. This is where many people accidentally become victims of their own silence. Instead of communicating limits, they expect others to magically recognize them. But people cannot respect boundaries they cannot see. Hidden expectations always become hidden disappointments. Strong relationships are built on clarity, not sacrifice. Healthy people don't respect you because you always agree. They respect you because they know where you stand. Predictability creates trust. People know your yes means yes, and your no also means no. That consistency creates security. Ironically, the people who fear disappointing everyone usually end up disappointing themselves most. They slowly abandon hobbies, dreams, health, rest, ambition, peace, until one day they wake up wondering where their life went. It disappeared, one unnecessary yes at a time. This is why protecting your attention is one of the highest forms of self-respect. Attention is life. Where your attention goes, your future follows. Every unnecessary argument steals it. Every toxic relationship drains it. Every obligation accepted out of guilt weakens it. The world is constantly competing for your attention. Social media, news, notifications, work, family, strangers. Everyone wants a piece of your focus. Few people ask whether they deserve it. That decision belongs to you. The strongest individuals understand something powerful. Access must be earned. Not everyone deserves unlimited emotional access. Not everyone deserves your vulnerability. Not everyone deserves your time. This doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you responsible. Imagine your life as a castle. Would you leave every gate open? Would you allow every stranger to walk inside your home? Of course not. Yet many people do exactly that emotionally. Anyone can interrupt them. Anyone can demand their energy. Anyone can borrow their peace. Eventually, the castle is no longer theirs. It's occupied by everyone else's priorities. Reclaiming respect begins with reclaiming ownership. Ownership of your mornings, ownership of your evenings, ownership of your schedule, ownership of your emotional state, ownership of your future. The remarkable thing is that once you begin doing this, some people will complain. Not because you've become selfish, but because your boundaries expose their dependence on your lack of boundaries. They'll say you've changed. They're right. Growth always looks like change to people benefiting from your old behavior. Do not fear that transformation. Respect is rarely given to those who constantly seek permission. It naturally follows those who quietly respect themselves first, and that brings us to the most important realization of all. People cannot permanently lower your value. If you stop giving it away for free, the moment you understand that, everything begins to change. Every transformation begins with a death. Not the death of your body, the death of an identity. The version of yourself that has survived by pleasing everyone cannot become the version that commands genuine respect. Both cannot exist at the same time. At some point, one must disappear. This is the moment most people resist, because changing your behavior is easy. Changing your identity is terrifying. When you've spent years believing that your worth depends on being liked, every boundary feels dangerous. Every no feels like betrayal. Every disagreement feels like rejection. Your mind whispers the same old lies. What if they leave? What if they stop liking me? What if they think I'm selfish? Those thoughts feel real, but they are echoes from an older version of you. A version that confused acceptance with survival. The truth is simpler. Not everyone is supposed to stay in your life. Some people were only comfortable with the version of you that required nothing from them. The moment you begin asking for respect, their comfort disappears, and that is not your responsibility. The first step in this transformation is learning one of the most underestimated skills in human psychology: silence. Most people believe power belongs to the person speaking. Often, it belongs to the person who remains completely comfortable saying nothing. Think about arguments. Someone criticizes you. Your instinct immediately searches for explanations. You defend yourself, clarify your intentions, list every reason you were misunderstood. The longer you explain, the weaker your position often becomes. Why? Because excessive explanation communicates uncertainty. Confident people don't rush to convince everyone. They allow reality to speak for itself. Silence creates space, and space creates mystery. Mystery creates authority. This doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming intentional. Not every accusation deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding requires correction. Not every opinion deserves your emotional energy. One of the greatest signs of maturity is realizing that clarity is not always your responsibility. Sometimes people misunderstand you because they want to. Sometimes they already decided who you are before you spoke. No explanation can compete with a conclusion someone desperately wants to believe. Learn to recognize the difference. The second transformation is learning to become emotionally unshakable. Imagine a massive oak tree during a storm. The wind screams, branches bend, rain falls relentlessly. Yet the roots remain still. Now imagine a leaf. Every gust of wind determines its direction. Many people live like leaves. Every compliment lifts them. Every criticism crushes them. Every opinion changes their emotional weather. Their peace depends entirely on external conditions. Real confidence works differently. It comes from internal stability. When someone praises you, you appreciate it, but you don't depend on it. When someone criticizes you, you evaluate it. If it's useful, you learn. If it isn't, you let it pass. Your emotional state remains yours, not theirs. This is what emotional sovereignty looks like. No one can steal peace that isn't handed over. The third transformation is understanding the power of selective generosity. Being generous is admirable. Being endlessly available is destructive. There is an enormous difference. Imagine a gardener. Would they water every plant equally? Even the weeds? Of course not. Healthy growth requires discernment. The same principle applies to relationships. Your kindness should be invested where it creates growth, not wasted where it enables dysfunction. Some people don't need another rescue. They need responsibility. Some don't need another chance. They need consequences. Some don't need more of your energy. They need to discover their own. Compassion without wisdom often becomes self-destruction. True generosity empowers others. It does not create dependence. Another powerful shift happens when you stop trying to control how people see you. This may sound impossible. After all, most of us spend our lives managing perceptions, trying to appear intelligent, successful, interesting, kind, strong. But here's the paradox. The harder you try to manage everyone's opinion, the less authentic you become. And people instinctively sense authenticity. They may not understand why, but they feel it. Someone who constantly adjusts themselves for approval appears uncertain. Someone who accepts misunderstanding appears grounded. There is incredible freedom in saying, "They are allowed to misunderstand me." That sentence changes everything, because it removes the impossible burden of universal approval. The fourth transformation involves replacing reaction with response. Reactive people live emotionally. Responsive people live intentionally. Imagine someone insults you. A reactive mind fires back immediately. A responsive mind pauses, not because it's weak, because it refuses to surrender control. That pause is powerful. Within it exists choice, and choice creates freedom. Without pause, you become predictable. With pause, you become deliberate. This single habit changes relationships, negotiations, leadership, and conflict. Emotion becomes information, not instruction. Perhaps the greatest transformation of all is redefining what strength actually means. Strength is not intimidation. It isn't dominance. It isn't making others feel small. Real strength is emotional independence, the ability to remain centered while chaos unfolds around you, the ability to remain kind without becoming naive, the ability to remain firm without becoming cruel, the ability to protect your peace without apologizing for it. This kind of strength is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek attention. It doesn't need constant validation. People simply feel it. Have you ever met someone whose presence changed the atmosphere without saying much? That isn't charisma alone. It's congruence. Their actions, values, and boundaries align. There is no internal conflict, no performance, no mask, only clarity. Clarity is magnetic. Confusion repels. People trust consistency, not perfection. As this transformation continues, something unexpected begins to happen. Your relationships become fewer, but deeper. Your conversations become shorter, but more meaningful. Your circle becomes smaller, but stronger. This often scares people. They mistake fewer relationships for loneliness. In reality, quality has replaced quantity. You no longer need dozens of shallow connections to feel valuable. You begin attracting people who respect your boundaries because they have boundaries of their own. Healthy people don't fear healthy limits. Only unhealthy dynamics depend on limitless access. Eventually, you stop entering rooms hoping to be accepted. You enter rooms asking a different question. Does this environment deserve my energy? That single shift changes your entire life. You are no longer trying to earn your place. You are evaluating whether the place aligns with your values. Power quietly returns, not because others gave it back, because you stopped giving it away. The old version of you believed love required self-sacrifice. The new version understands that genuine love requires self-respect. The old version believed saying yes created connection. The new version understands that honest boundaries create trust. The old version feared losing people. The new version fears losing itself. That is the transformation. Not becoming harder, becoming clearer, not becoming colder, becoming wiser, not becoming selfish, becoming intentional. And once you experience that freedom, you'll wonder how you ever confused people-pleasing with kindness, because they're not the same, never were. There comes a moment in every person's life when a quiet realization changes everything. It doesn't happen with applause. It doesn't happen after reading another motivational quote. It happens in silence, usually after one disappointment too many, one betrayal too many, one sacrifice too many. You finally ask yourself, what if the problem isn't that I'm not good enough? What if the problem is that I've been living according to someone else's rules? That question marks the beginning of freedom, because for years, most people never truly choose their lives. They inherit them. They inherit beliefs. They inherit fears. They inherit expectations. Someone told them success meant pleasing authority. Someone taught them that conflict should always be avoided. Someone convinced them that self-sacrifice was the highest form of love. Eventually, those ideas stop feeling like lessons. They become identity, and identity is difficult to question. But every powerful transformation begins by examining the invisible rules running your life. Ask yourself honestly, who taught you that saying no is rude? Who convinced you that resting means laziness? Who decided your worth depends on productivity? Who benefits when you never challenge expectations? Most people never ask these questions. They simply obey. Not because they want to, because they've forgotten they have a choice. Freedom begins the moment awareness replaces automatic behavior. That awareness creates something priceless, choice. And choice creates power. Real power isn't forcing people to do what you want. Real power is refusing to let circumstances decide who you become. Imagine two people facing the same hardship. Both lose opportunities, both experience rejection, both encounter betrayal. One becomes bitter, the other becomes wiser. The event was identical. The interpretation was different. Your interpretation shapes your destiny far more than your circumstances. This is why resilient people seem impossible to break. Not because life is easier for them, because they refuse to surrender the one thing nobody can steal, their response. This is emotional ownership. The mature mind stops asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, it asks, "How will I use this?" Every obstacle becomes material. Every failure becomes education. Every setback becomes preparation. Nothing is wasted. This perspective transforms suffering into strength. But there is another lesson few people understand. Peace requires subtraction. Modern life constantly encourages addition. More possessions, more followers, more achievements, more attention, more validation, more opinions. Yet peace rarely comes from adding more. It comes from removing what no longer belongs. Remove toxic conversations. Remove unnecessary drama. Remove impossible expectations. Remove relationships built only on obligation. Remove habits that drain your spirit. A sculptor creates beauty by removing stone. Your life works the same way. Sometimes your greatest breakthrough isn't finding something new. It's finally letting go of something old. As unnecessary weight disappears, clarity appears. And clarity changes everything. Suddenly, decisions become easier. You no longer chase every opportunity. You choose the meaningful ones. You no longer respond to every criticism. You focus on what deserves your attention. Attention is your greatest currency. Spend it wisely. Every minute spent arguing with someone committed to misunderstanding you is a minute stolen from your own future. Every hour spent trying to convince people of your value is an hour not spent becoming more valuable. The strongest people don't protect their reputation. They protect their focus. Focus creates momentum. Momentum creates mastery. Mastery creates confidence, and confidence no longer depends on applause. This is the difference between external confidence and internal certainty. External confidence says, "I feel good because people approve of me." Internal certainty says, "I know who I am regardless of their opinion." Only one survives difficult seasons. Life will eventually test everyone. You'll lose money, plans will fail, people will disappoint you, dreams will change. If your identity depends on circumstances, every setback feels like personal destruction. But if your identity is rooted in values, no storm lasts forever. Values become anchors. Integrity, discipline, courage, patience, self-respect. These cannot be taken from you, only abandoned by you. And that distinction matters. Many people fear losing everything. Few realize that what matters most cannot be stolen. Character is built through repeated choices. Every honest decision strengthens it. Every difficult boundary reinforces it. Every courageous conversation expands it. You become someone you trust. That may be the greatest reward of all. Imagine looking in the mirror without regret, knowing your words match your actions, knowing you no longer betray yourself to keep temporary peace, knowing your kindness is chosen, not demanded. Your generosity is intentional, not exploited. Your silence is wisdom, not fear. This is genuine freedom, not freedom from responsibility, freedom from unnecessary emotional chains. People will still criticize you. Let them. People will still misunderstand you. Allow it. People will still leave. Wish them well. None of those events determine your worth. Only your response does. One day, you'll notice something remarkable. Situations that once devastated you barely disturb your peace. Conversations that once caused anxiety become ordinary. People who once controlled your emotions lose their influence completely. Not because they changed, because you did. Growth is often invisible while it's happening. You don't notice the strength developing until one day, the weight that once crushed you feels light. That is resilience, not becoming emotionless, becoming emotionally resilient, still capable of love, still capable of compassion, still capable of empathy, but no longer controlled by fear. There is enormous strength in quiet confidence. The loudest person in the room rarely possesses the most power. Power often speaks softly. It doesn't rush. It doesn't prove. It doesn't chase. It simply exists, like a mountain, unmoved by passing weather. This should become your goal, not domination, stability, not superiority, mastery, not perfection, growth, because perfection is impossible. Growth is available every single day. One decision, one habit, one conversation, one boundary, one courageous choice, repeated consistently. That is how extraordinary lives are built, not through dramatic moments, through disciplined consistency. The world often celebrates talent. History remembers character. Talent opens doors. Character determines what happens after they open. And when your character becomes stronger than your fear, no one can truly control you anymore. Not through guilt, not through manipulation, not through approval, not through rejection. You become internally free. That freedom changes the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you decide, the way you love, the way you lead. People notice, not because you're trying to impress them, because authenticity has a presence that performance never achieves. This is the final lesson. Do not spend your life trying to become someone impossible to criticize, become someone impossible to manipulate. Protect your peace, protect your integrity, protect your purpose. Because at the end of your life, no one will remember how many people approved of you, but you will remember whether you had the courage to live honestly, stand firm, choose wisely, walk forward without apology, and let your life become proof that true strength is never loud, it is unwavering.